got that HD on.
We good yet?
We're live.
All right, and welcome back to the Paisan Sports podcast presented by Elevation 5280 Sports. Dante DePlacido joined as always by Zach Deal of What's the Deal Sports. So I've got to ask, what's the deal with these Labubus? What are they? And all of a sudden they're everywhere. I don't know. There's some stuffed animal. You collect them. I really don't know the concept, but suddenly they're everywhere. They came out of nowhere. I have no idea what's happening. And what's the deal with these Indonesia kids boat racing? And they're doing the dance in front of the boat. Have you seen this? Have you seen these Indonesian kids oar farming on the front of the boat?
I have not.
You have not. It's been all over my TikTok feed. I feel like
I would accuse you of aura farming from doing that thing where you're like indecisive about the glasses, like at the last second, and sometimes you do like the pivot.
Sometimes I'm feeling the glasses. Sometimes I'm not feeling the glasses. Let's not get too deep into it, okay? But anyway, what's the deal with all that stuff going on? But let's not spend any time on nonsense. Let's spend time on a team that's about to square off in a rubber match, a team that put up a few home runs and won 5-1 yesterday. Let's talk about the Titans.
Yeah, I mean the Phillies. I don't really know what to make of them at this point. I think the big question mark, the big topic to talk about, a lot of people are talking about it, is Bryce Harper and what caliber of player is Bryce Harper at this point of his career.
Listen, the Phillies are in first place right now. Okay, they have a chance today to win another series in a row, and they have a great chance at it with Zach Wheeler on the mound. They have a pitcher in Ranger Suarez, who's been absolutely lights out. Oh, by the way, should have stayed in for the sixth inning yesterday. I think there's a lot more positive to talk about than negative with the Phillies in terms of Bryce Harper. I mean,
but are they positioned where they are in the NL East race because of what they're doing specifically, or more so of the woes of the Atlanta Braves and the crazy bad streak that the Mets are on?
The Phillies have a great record, so no, you got to give them their credit. You know, I mean, you look at lately the woes of the Mets and the Braves, but also the Mets went on, you know, a really big hot streak for a while. They're 52-38 are the New York Mets. So, and the Phillies currently sit at 52-37. They're in first place. It's not like they're leading a poor division at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's not a bad division. I was actually going to compliment the two teams that aren't really seen in the race, and the Nationals and the Marlins are actually playing really good baseball recently. I keep trying to load up ESPN.
Oh yeah, the Marlins have overtaken the Braves. Wow, I didn't even notice that. Marlins are 8-2 in their last 10. Phillies are just 5-5, but if they
Marlins are 7 games under 500, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, but I want to see. So how many? If they win today, so they win that series. They won the series against the Padres.
That's got to be the best. I'm looking at all the games today.
So this would be the third series win in a row.
I'm looking at all the games right now on ESPN that are listed, and it says that the Mets are 33-13 in 46 home games. So that's a really good record. That's actually pretty dominant. So, I mean, you saw how the Phillies fared when they had to go to New York last season in the playoffs. And, I mean, the one thing I will say about the Mets, though, that doesn't scare me is I feel like their lineup outside of their top guys isn't that good at the bottom of the lineup. And I think, I mean, we've seen in years past last year. Tommy Edmonds stepped up huge for the Dodgers when they traded for him at the trade deadline. And their 7 through 9 guys batted really well throughout the playoff run. And then we talked about before the podcast started, and you were kind of shocked when I was telling you the 2023 AL All-Star roster when Texas won the World Series. That was the year that the Phillies lost to the Diamondbacks in the championship series in the National League. And the Texas Rangers had the entire infield besides first base as all-stars and then a reserve right fielder. So when your lineup's good throughout, that just kind of just shows you. So that's what doesn't scare me about the Mets. Also, their pitching, I'm just not that scared of their starting pitching, even though it started off the year pitching extremely well, and that's a reason why they have such a good home record. But come playoff time, I'm not that intimidated by their starting pitching. I think the Phillies had the edge there. But I mean,
the Phillies have the edge in starting pitching when compared to every single MLB team. And this is the best in terms of, your top 4 guys or top 3 or 4 or top 4 guys that are going to be starting in the playoffs. It's easily the best rotation in baseball. You're not going to get a better rotation in the playoffs. Ranger has been lights out. Wheeler is lights out as always. Christopher Sanchez has been lights out and has been in the past as well. Those are 3 lights out pitchers right there.
They gave Sanchez the home start last year over Nola. Was it Nola?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I remember that now that you say that. Maybe.
So that just shows the confidence that they have in him. And yeah, he's just a phenomenal pitcher. I mean, they got Zach Wheeler had the lowest ERA in June. What was it, like 0.51 or something ridiculous like that? And Ranger currently has the lowest ERA of any National League pitcher, I'm pretty sure, with like a 1.99.
Is he qualified right now? Has he had enough starts to qualify for best ERA?
I'm pretty sure he's at like 13 starts, isn't he?
I think he's at 12. He might be at 13. But yeah, if as long as he stays healthy,
12 starts, 77 innings pitched. He only has 20 innings less than Luzardo has pitched. Only 23 less than Sanchez. So, I mean, I was telling you before the podcast started when we were gathering our topics together. If Jesus Luzardo wants to make this playoff roster, the 26-man playoff roster, I feel like his role would probably be as a long reliever. That's probably his best.
At the rate he's going, the thing that's confusing about Jesus Luzardo is he is extremely hit or miss. Like he'll have.
Well, he has good stuff,
and then just
like
get lit
you
up.
can trust him for 2 to 3 innings, though. It's just like there's that breaking point. I think I mentioned it on a podcast a couple weeks ago how a lot of all the Phillies pitchers that they use have good stuff. It's just it gets to a point where it usually doesn't happen to Zach Wheeler, but all the other pitchers, it gets to a certain point where the floodgate just opens and then gets really, really bad. But Jesus Luzardo has shown that like the exaggeration of that could be the worst possible situation that you can get yourself into. And I think I talked about that first start where he really imploded. Where was that? Was that St. Louis? Bad start.
Let me check. Let me check that. Let me check the tape.
I'm pretty sure it was a Saturday St. Louis game, wasn't it?
No. That was the game against the Brewers where he gave up 12 runs.
It was a Saturday game, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a Saturday game, yeah.
Yeah, and then the next one was that Thursday versus Toronto. So that was when Thompson got thrown out of the game, and then the other coach that took over did not really defend.
But yeah, if we look at Jesus' starts since he faced the Brewers, first of all, after the start before that, after the game against the Athletics, he was sitting at a 2.15 ERA. He was looking great. That happens, and he has
Everybody, their
another bad
MLB
story
Network
against
was
the
putting
Blue
up
Jays.
clips and content talking about how they thought it was the biggest, most impactful move of the offseason, and then it drastically has turned. I mean, and it turned in
Well, wait,
such
hold on, because I just wanted to go through this real quick. So he gave up the 12 runs against the Brewers, followed by the 8 runs against the Blue Jays. Then he bounces back with a great outing against the Cubs, 6 innings, 1 run. Then he goes and plays the Marlins. He gets lit up a bit, nothing too crazy. 5 innings, 4 runs. Definitely a bad start, but not as insane. Then he bounces back with a terrific performance against the Mets, going 6 2/3, only allowing 3 hits, no runs, 7 strikeouts. Follows that up with a solid performance against the Braves, 5 innings, 2 earned runs. So it's like, okay, he's starting to put it back together a bit. And then against the Reds, only 2 innings, 5 runs. So it's right now, I don't know what to think of Jesus. I don't, because obviously he's still capable of having terrific outings. He's still been demonstrating it while he's been pitching poorly. But every
Do
other
you think the
start or
adjustment
so, he just
between
gets
him
lit
like
up.
pitching bad? Do you think the adjustment between him like pitching bad right now and then him hearing the new information that he needs to do and what the changes that he needs to make while he's trying to adjust to just being a Philly itself from, just not being in Philadelphia for the past couple seasons, being with Miami? Do you think all those adjustments in itself are just kind of overwhelming him?
Maybe, I don't know, because I mean, it's not like he had a bad start to the year and
I
he had
also
great
think since the
numbers.
pitch clock era, like when a pitcher starts getting flustered, and this in the new pitch clock era, and you have this limited amount of time, you don't have all the time to gather and collect yourself like the time that you had previously. Things could get bad.
Yeah, yeah, and I think in the pitch clock era, we have seen a lot of pitchers start off the season really good and then it dies out because, yeah, maybe their arms just can't handle a full season of pitching with the pitch clock. You're delivering the next pitch a lot faster than you typically would. So it's a lot more strain on the arm. So that could be playing a factor into it. I want to see how the rest of the season plays out. But as of right now, either way, going into the postseason, barring any injuries, knock on wood, we have 3 elite level starters heading into the postseason. Um, Now, in terms of what we'll
And
have
still
next,
no
so
reliable bullpen to back it all up. So
well, yeah, you still got to rely on the bullpen. But
We'll
right
get
now, I'm
6
trying
to
to think
7 good
about.
innings out of these guys, and then that'll be that. So what
But
what what changes can be made to this bullpen to actually solidify this bullpen? You told me before the season started on record, and I can pull up the clip if you try and debate me on this. You told me that you were not worried about the bullpen.
did I actually?
Yeah.
I don't.
You said
No,
that
because I
going into
was.
the
I
playoffs
like.
last
If
season.
you're telling me, here's the thing. If you're telling me I said that, then I guess maybe I. But all I'm saying is I can't picture myself saying that because I know I've been upset with all the departures from the bullpen. Yeah, because no, I was upset about Estevez leaving and Hoffman leaving. I challenge you to find that clip actually, because
I
I
can pull it up
doubt
for you.
I said that. I challenge you to find it. Um,
You
I think
also
I
said
remember
that
being worried
before.
about the
You
bullpen
also
coming
said
into
that
it.
before the playoffs too, that you weren't worried about the
I
bullpen.
did no, that is correct. I did say that going into the playoffs, but that was a time where we had Estevez and Hoffman. I and Alvarado and Kirkering, who I really like, and Matt Strom. I mean, going into the playoffs on paper, our bullpen was loaded. Right now, it's not. The only 2 guys out of that bullpen that I like are Kirkering and Strom. I don't like
How
Romano
willing are
anymore.
you to change that? Like, what are you willing to do to
I'm
change
very
that?
willing. I would trade Kepler for a bullpen arm and call up Crawford. That's what I would do personally.
How old of
Especially
a bullpen arm? Like, how old?
I don't give a shit about age. I care about ability, and
Like
I
a
love.
Roldis Chapman?
Oh, I would definitely take an Aroldis Chapman. I don't know if I would prefer lefty or righty because I think right now our best reliever is Kirkering. So maybe I would want
Well, it's
lefty.
just
But
going to be so sad when Alvarado comes back and he helps us a little bit to get to the playoffs, and then we
I
know
keep
we can't
forgetting
use
he's
him
coming back at some point.
because it happens quickly. Did you see the Braves brought back Profar, and he's hit like 2 or 3 home runs already in like 3 or 4 games or 5
I didn't
games?
see that, but what I wanted to get into before we brought up the bullpen is so we have 3 elite level starters going into the postseason. The rest of the rotation right now, we're unsure about Jesus. Now we're unsure about Nola's injury. We also know Mick Abel just got sent down to AAA because he's been getting lit up. Taijuan Walker is back into the starting rotation for now. Now, Taijuan Walker hasn't been very good in the bullpen this season, but as a starter this year, he was lights out. So we'll see how that goes. But they also announced most likely July 20. Well, they didn't announce it, but there was swirlings about it. I don't know if that's the right term.
Speculation.
Speculation, stirrings. I think I meant stirring.
Rumblings would have been a better word.
Rumblings. That's good. July 22nd, we might be seeing Andrew Painter make his first start in the MLB. They say
Hot take. You want to hear a hot take? I'd rather see Justin Crawford in the major leagues before Andrew Painter.
You know, with how Painter is pitching in AAA right now, I don't hate that take at all.
That's not even the number one reason why. I think it's just because the help that we need in the outfield compared to the help that we need at starting pitcher too.
Yeah, no, that's valid. And plus, with how well Crawford is playing in AAA, I just want to check in on his batting average.
I think Otto Kemp is also playing well. He's just not an outfielder.
He is. But Kemp is playing like Kemp
gives me the belief because we talked about Sosa platoon so much that he's barely considered a bench player. But I think Kemp can actually be the first or second bench player on the playoff roster and be a pinch hitter.
Wait, hold on 1 second. So last time on this podcast, we checked in on Justin Crawford's batting average in AAA was 335. He's now batting 343. Get this guy into the freaking majors, dude.
How many home runs? Has he hit a couple home runs yet or no?
He's hit 2. He hit 9 last year. Right now he has 2. I mean, I don't care about the home runs. I care about
it's not like for him, it's not like he's like was ever considered a home run hitter. So that's like not something that concerns me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he has 26
with Mick Abel, you mentioned him and how they had sent him back down because how poorly he's been pitching, and he's kind of been overwhelmed when he's been matching up against these other lineups that have more talent. Obviously, we talked about his first outing, how it went, but the Pirates are playing better baseball now, so I feel like that outing could have went entirely differently if he played against them now, the way that he's pitching, the way that they're playing. But with Mick Abel, do you think they were kind of just showing him off as like potentially a trade piece, and that's why he was getting the innings to be pitched in the major leagues because they have Andrew Painter? It was always seen as it would be hard for Mick Abel to crack the lineup if everything went well with the current guys that are in there, and then Andrew Painter coming up to the majors itself. So it's going to be hard for him to retain a position in the starting lineup, even or starting rotation, even with Ranger potentially leaving after this season and Jesus Luzardo not pitching the best right now and Aaron Nola up. It seems like there could be a position for him, but he hasn't been pitching the best right now, but he's still a young guy. Teams are still going to be interested with him. Do you think the Phillies were just like showing him off as a trade piece and hoping that he pitched well enough for teams to throw stuff at them and then potentially reap the benefits through a trade, or do you think they were actually trying to see what they had in him and see if that he could stick around to the rotation?
I think they were trying to see what they had in him. You know, this was a guy who was a top prospect for a long time who finally started to get things going this year in AAA after a poor season last year. You're dealing with.
I feel like there's a lot of bad teams though that need a young starting pitcher that are willing to part with like a good position player that is actually like one of their better players on their roster now to reset with that young pitcher and just get that guy.
Right now, I mean, I do think a move could be made for an outfielder, but I think I'd rather see them just call up Crawford and see what he can do and add a bullpen arm.
Like the Red Sox starting rotation sucks. Like you could easily try and get. I mean, I don't know if you can pry Alex Bregman away, and he's injured right now, and he's
Well,
so
what
good.
does their bullpen look like? That's what I want to know.
They got Chapman. That's the guy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They do fucking have chat. Yeah, give them. Yeah,
If
I would
we could
not
walk
hate.
away with Duran and Chapman in one trade, and then trade like um, Mick Abel. They would probably need some infield help, I would assume. They got a bunch
I
of
would give him. I would give him Abel for Chapman. Easy.
I don't know if I would do that personally as much as I've been hyping up Chapman. I mean, that's 37 for 23.
Yeah, but this is a team that
I like see like everybody wants to like trade for a reliever. Like I want to get a reliever like in a discount. Like if I'm trading like a piece like a prospect that has shown that he could pitch decently and has had some outlier really good starts in the MLB, like I want to trade for a position player. I feel like it's so much more valuable to get a position player back.
You know what I'm curious about? Whatever happened to Hans Kraus? Remember him? He was in one of those trades at the deadline a couple of years ago. He pitched he pitched 25 games out of the bullpen for the Angels last year with a 2.8 ERA. Has not pitched in the majors this year. Is he hurt? I am getting so sidetracked right now. But because I used to just like pair Hans Kraus and Mick Abel in the same breath in my head. Oh yeah, he has an injury. That's messed up. Speaking of former Phillies prospects on the Angels, I saw when I sent you that one thing from Twitter today, somebody mentioned Logan Ohape has 17 homers for the Angels. But he just wasn't included in that tweet because he's not technically a former Philly since he never made an MLB appearance for the Phillies. But then I looked at his batting average. He's batting like 214 and his own base percentage is below 300. I'm not
That's the same with
upset about
Cody
that.
Clemens. That would actually help the Phillies though, compared to what JT provides them, because he bats like what 25 batting averages points higher and adds like not even close to the amount of pop. So I feel like that extra pop would actually balance out to be more productive for the Phillies. But defensively, he's nowhere near the defensive catcher that
Yeah,
JT.
I'd rather have JT over Ohape right now.
But I mean, it would be good to have an extra little pop in the bat. I mean, that's also something that you could. I was also going to say deciphering between when we're talking about trade deadline moves. If we're looking, obviously they could use an outfielder, but if we're looking at like the specific batting order and what they need, do you think they need more of a power bat or a specific cleanup batter?
I think they need if they're gonna add any type of bat, I think
Because
power
I feel
bat.
like there's definitely a difference between a power bat and a cleanup
Well,
bat.
yeah, and we saw that out of Alec Boehm last year where he was knocking in RBIs by the boatload without hitting home runs. Hit a home run yesterday, by the way, which was awesome to see. But
But when I talk
I
about
think
the
we need
7
more
through
pop.
9
I mean,
flourishing, when I
I
talk
think
about
we
the
need
7
more
through
pop
9
right
in your
now.
lineup being able to flourish, like, I envision him batting, like, 7th or 8th. Not 8th, but, like, 6th or 7th in that
Well,
ideal lineup
he's
to, like,
batting.
maximize the.
I just saw the lineup for today. He's batting in the cleanup spot yet again. Castellanos is batting fifth. Kepler banks sixth. But what I'm saying is, I think they need to. I think if you're gonna add either one or the other, I would more so focus on adding a reliever and call up Crawford. But if you're gonna add like a power or cleanup bat at the deadline, I would go power. I mean, outside of Schwarber, we don't really have anyone hitting for a ton of power this season. We're also looking at possibly losing Schwarber in the offseason and then just having no pop in the lineup after that. So I think I would go power. But
Well,
like
Durant
I
could
said,
clutch it.
the way I would want to play it right now, and this could be the wrong move just because the bats typically seem to be the issue once we get into the postseason. But I think I would prefer to call up Crawford and trade Kepler for a reliever, or maybe even keep Kepler as a platoon guy.
I
Uh,
think Kepler for 10 million has been underwhelming, but he does hit, like, timely
is that how much
extra.
we're paying him? Jesus.
Yeah. But he does hit you. You can't lie that he doesn't hit like timely extra base hits at times.
He does, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe keep it as a platoon guy. He's been
He's
hitting the
not a
ball.
good overall hitter, but he does hit extra base hits in a lineup that's lacking power. So that's something that's needed. But if
I think he
like,
brings. I'm going to say this
but
about
I
Crawford.
agree with you that I want to bring Crawford up, but the outfield needs more help than just one guy. That's why I'm also willing to go trade for a proven outfielder to edge out the outfield. And Duran is a guy that hits for a bunch of doubles. We talked about how good his WAR is before, and he's a guy that can instantly help you and be a 3, 4, 5 guy in your lineup.
If they could make a trade with the Red Sox to bring in both Chapman and Duran, that would be a huge home run at
Who
the
are you willing to
deadline.
part with? It starts with Abel. Who else are you willing to part with to make that happen?
Duran leads the league in triples right now with 10. Wow. He led the league last year in both doubles and triples. Who am I willing to part with? Like, I think I'd be willing to part with Abel.
Oh, for Durant, I'm 100% willing to do that. Like, it's different if I'm talking
Yeah,
about like
if we can get Duran and Chapman out of it, definitely. The one guy I'm not willing to part with, the two guys I'm not willing to part with are Justin Crawford and Andrew Painter. At this point, with how Aiden Miller is performing, I'm not saying like I'm giving up on Aiden Miller or anything, but in terms of acquiring talent, I think I don't think Aiden Miller, I would consider him untouchable. Eduardo Tate, I'm not moving. That's the one guy, even though he's not like as big of a prospect as those other guys, we're gonna need Eduardo Tate. I'm not willing to move on from him. We
I would
need that.
only move him for like Paul Skeens if he gets mad at
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
yeah. If we can trade Eduardo Tate for Paul Skeens, I'm
Not
willing to
straight
do that.
up, but there would be like 5 guys involving him
Yeah,
that would be involved for that package,
yeah.
and I'd be
I
all in.
would agree with that, but I think we're really gonna need
I heard a
Eduardo Tate
conversation of people trying to
soon.
say that they would not drop the bag on Paul Skeens if he became available for trade, and I think every single team would line up and be trying to drop
I
the
would
bag on him.
easily drop a bag for Paul Skeens. Yeah, that's just ridiculous.
I'm looking at the Diamondbacks roster right now because they're kind of buried in their division. It looks like it'd be really tough for
Well,
them to overcome it. They
I
have that
think
expiring contract with Suarez. Corbin Carroll's hurt right now, who was like a early MVP candidate. So they're kind of flourishing right now. I'm trying to see what relief pitching you could pair with Suarez, the third baseman, to bring over here as like a package.
Eduardo Tate right now at the age of 18 is batting 257, a 331 on base percentage, and he's got 11 home runs and 45
He got
ribbies.
named to the futures, the MLB futures game.
He is one hell of a prospect. And so not only is he one hell of a prospect, but he's a guy we're gonna need pretty soon here. So I don't want to just move on from him. But it's time for my meatball of the week. My meatball of the week is a pitcher by the name of Luis Ortiz, a guy who doing something we were just talking about last week. I don't know if you could consider it shaving points when referring to baseball, but a guy betting on himself. A guy got caught betting on himself. One big example of it was he bet that the first pitch of the third inning, which he was delivering, he bet the
All right,
third.
you're making definitives now. I got to cut you off real quick. It's still under investigation. It's under review. This is the speculation.
Okay, fine. Allegedly, I'll put allegedly ahead of it. But the first pitch of the third inning, one of his games, he bet that the first pitch was going to be a ball, to where he just threw the pitch directly into the dirt. It didn't even look like he was trying to hide it. So yet another player, a professional athlete,
But one that
recently.
was more alarming to me was there was a video of him striking somebody out, and he was like frustrated about it.
Oh yeah, he yelled the F word. He was like, yeah, he struck somebody out to end the inning and then went fuck. So yeah, no, he's guilty. He's guilty.
I mean, we'll see. Yeah, it's
He's
definitely
guilty.
it's interesting. I feel like a bit like MLB, like for a pit, like I don't know. That's like the sketchiest. I feel like you're like so isolated and like the spotlight's so on you. It's like an NBA player purposely breaking a free throw and then that would be under investigation. Like everybody's staring at that one guy set shooting. It's like there's one guy set on the mound pitching and throwing. You know what I mean? Like you're in the spotlight. You're like the highlighted guy outside of the batter. So I feel like it's really hard to hide. So it's crazy what all these people are doing right now. I was trying to
And
think
it's
about
wild
more
they're
people
getting
that
paid millions of dollars. It makes no goddamn sense to me, dude. It makes no sense. You're
we
getting
had an
paid
example
millions.
for every sport, but we didn't have the NHL. So now that it's a reoccurring topic, I got to do a live research real quick.
Do that while I talk about the other meatball of the week, just to tie into it here. That one pitch Luis Ortiz threw directly into the dirt. That pitch was to Anthony Volpe, who's the other meatball of the week. Zach brought this to my attention. Drilled Aaron Judge in the face with a ball to where Andrew Judge, his face got pretty messed up, and then he went 0 for 4 in that game. And they lost yet again. So, Anthony Volpe, you're also the meatball of the week.
Yeah.
By the way, the Yankees haven't won yet this month.
What was it, June 7th or July 7th?
July 6th.
It's July 6th.
And no wins so far for the Yanks.
And the Mets were just slumping and then just started clapping them. The Dodgers they're potentially going to get swept by the Astros today too. They lost 18-1 the other day. The Astros are peaking again when they just got rid of Kyle Tucker, who was like 27, 28 years old, seen as like a pivotal player of their franchise, helped them win a championship, have been around for a while, like a young piece of the nucleus. Got rid of Bregman, got rid of Tucker, and Alvarez has been hurt the entire year, and they just haven't skipped a beat. Jose Altuve's playing in the outfield, and I hear that they're looking for a second baseman at the trade deadline. It's just so funny, but I think they had the first baseman, Cam Smith, that they got in one of the trades. I'm pretty sure it was the Cubs trade with Isaac Paredes, and I think he's hit like 8 home runs in a short period of time. So,
well, you know what?
Remember the Rhys Hoskins experience when he hit all those home runs when he first came up to the major leagues?
Yeah, he hit those home runs faster than like any player ever has. The other thing we want to talk about is
real quickly before we move on.
Well, no, we're not moving on because there was another baseball topic.
No, I was going to say move on from the meatball of the week because I just wanted to give you the one. It says that Ottawa Senators player Shane Pinto in 2023 was suspended 41 games for the first NHL modern sports betting ban.
I feel like hockey is a lot harder to negatively impact the game so your team loses than like basketball or baseball.
Hockey, I feel like is like you can get like you're gonna have the most beef with different players on the court, field, ice of any sport if you get caught doing that when you return to the fields.
Can you imagine a left tackle in football doing that? That would be the worst.
Dude, I feel like hockey's the worst because you're just skating around in open ice. Everyone's pissed at you, and you're just getting drilled left and right, and then fights are legal. I mean, you just got to go do your penalty time, so you can just drop gloves, and everyone's going to want to try and fight you.
Yeah, but imagine like a left tackle just like not even trying with his blocks and just letting his QB get lit up all game. But the final thing we wanted to touch on with baseball, there's 2 injustices right now in the MLB All-Star voting. I'll start off with the one I'm most upset about, and then I'll go on to the one I'm also upset about, but I would say Zach is most upset about. The first one is an example of, in my opinion, a flawed system because you look at the amount of votes Kyle Schwarber has gotten as a DH hitter in the National League, and it's not that many, and it's because Shohei Ohtani is also in the National League. So when you're voting, you have to choose a DH. Most people are going to choose Ohtani. Schwarber's having a great season, but Ohtani is having an even much better season, so it makes sense. Then meanwhile, you had Rafael Devers in the AL with not really much competition at the DH spot in the American League. He's not even having that great of a year, but just off of his name and him still playing decently well this year, he was able to gain a lot of votes for DH in the American League. He doesn't have Shohei Ohtani also there eating up all the votes. So he gains a lot of votes in the American League and then gets traded to the National League and gets to carry all those votes with him to the National League, to where now he's ahead of Kyle Schwarber in the National League voting for DH, when Schwarber's having a much better season by far. And now Schwarber's going to miss out on going to the All-Star game, despite having 27 home runs right now, possibly more before the All-Star break. It's just ridiculous. I think it's so flawed how that's set up, to where you can just be in one league with less competition, gain a bunch of votes, and then just bring it all over into another league and then be ahead of a guy who's having a way better season than you. I think that's so messed up. Zach, if you want to go into the other thing now, go ahead.
I mean, he's not having a way better season than him.
He's having a way better season.
Rocky Devers is top 7 in RBIs, top 5 in doubles, and he has 17 home runs. So, I mean, it kind of balances out. Schwarber's having a little bit better of a season than him, and he has a higher batting average.
He's got 27 homers.
Okay, he's got
and
RBIs,
like you said, a higher batting average. I mean, Schwarber doesn't have as many ribbies because he's banging the 2-hole. Look at Devers. He's batting .221 right now. Before going back to July 2nd, he was batting .200 at that point.
I mean, Schwarber was batting .180 at this point last year. But, yeah.
We're talking about last year. I'm talking about this year.
Yeah, I'm just talking about players peaking in certain spots. You're probably looking at the batting average since he's been a Red Sox.
Oh yeah, I am.
Or since he's been a what's his name?
Red Sox.
Since
What's
he's
his
been
total
a
batting average?
Giant. But I think it's an injustice that they do mid-season format in these sports besides the NFL. The mid-season ballots for the All-Star game, and then they host the All-Star game mid-season. And I feel like it takes away from people that kind of start hitting their stride later on in the season and end with a strong season. And we've had some examples. Dante, obviously. In Philadelphia sports itself, Bryce Harper didn't make the All-Star game the year that he won the MVP. When was the last time Zach Wheeler was in the All-Star game?
I don't know, but Zach Wheeler, it's not like I wouldn't say Zach Wheeler is a great example of that, because when he has a great year, he's great all year round.
Zach Wheeler's only made the All-Star game twice in the past 3 years or 4 years.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But I don't think that's the reason why. I think people just are snubbing him, because I can't really – I don't really –
Why would people be snubbing him when anybody that knows baseball considers him a top 5 pitcher in the sport? And a lot of people, when he's peaking, will just begin to make content about how he's the best pitcher in baseball. So how do you think that he's getting snubbed when he's –
I don't know, but we're talking like, okay, look at it like this, 2023 – he has a good season, but for him, it was a down year. He doesn't make the All-Star team. That's whatever. 2022 finishes with a 2.8 ERA, misses the All-Star game. So that's like the 1 year, right? I don't recall him having a poor first half of the season that year. I don't recall that. I can maybe look into it to check if that was the case right now, but I don't recall that being the case. And then looking at this year, I mean, almost certainly he's going to make the All-Star team.
The first thing that came to my head with that would be some of the pitchers that were better than they are now that were in the National League. Like Zach Gallen was like a better pitcher than he is now a couple years ago. Sandy Alcantara is the same way. He was a better pitcher than he was now. Like he won a Cy Young a couple years ago. What about pitchers that got traded out of the National League to the AL from that time period that he missed? Trying to think.
Well, not to get too caught up on Wheeler.
What's another example?
Well, yeah. So the other examples are Jimmy Rollins, who also won MVP without making the All-Star team in 2007. You can look at the opposite end of the spectrum with Alec Bohm getting an All-Star nod last year and then not performing nearly as well in the second half of the season. You can look at JT Realmuto in 2022, really pouring it on in the second half of the season. Castellanos last year, sort of. But right now, this year, a guy that's getting snubbed from the All-Star team, which makes no sense, and that is Trey Turner.
Yeah, the whole Dodgers starting lineup made it into the I think the Dodgers have a position player at every single position that made it into the All-Star game. It's pretty ridiculous. Literally go look at the starting the All-Star game lineup. Let's look at this real quick.
While you're doing that, I want to look at Wheeler's ERA by month in 2022, the year he didn't make the postseason.
All right, catcher Will Smith, completely deserved. He's actually probably the best catcher in baseball. Hitter-wise, he's probably the best catcher in baseball all around. And he's batted three high 300s. If I can look real quickly, Will Smith's third in the league, 332, completely deserved. So I'm not going to debate that. First base, Freddie Freeman. That's probably a top 50 baseball player potentially of all time. Completely deserved. He is batting 308 right now. It's dipped. He was batting high 350s earlier in the season, but completely deserved. Second base is Ketel Marte, completely deserved. Tommy Edman, runner-up, and Tommy Edman missed a bunch of games earlier in the season, so that's pretty crazy. Let me just go to the Dodgers.
You know why I think Trey Turner doesn't have a ton of NL votes at the moment? Typically, with players, they get a lot of votes from their fans. That's how.
All right, Tommy Edman, real quickly, is batting 10 home runs, 38 RBIs, 239, and is the runner-up at second base in the All-Star voting.
Wait, say those numbers again.
He is batting 10 home runs, 38 RBIs, 239 average.
And you said second?
He's the runner-up to second base.
That's just insane.
And then let me run through the rest because it was crazy when I was looking at it the other day. Francisco Lindor is the shortstop. This is where we start to debate outside, so I got to get out of there real quickly. Let me find Lindor. He's all the way down here. It's hard to even find him. All right, so I got to find another Mets player and go to their lineup because his stats are all the way down there. So Lindor is batting 261 with 17 home runs and 47 RBIs, 14 stolen bases. So a good season.
And he plays phenomenal defense. I'll give him that.
He's a good player. Those are all-star stats for a shortstop, but that's not the all-star starter stats for a shortstop in the all-star game, in my opinion. But those are okay. Mookie is the runner-up, and that's where at shortstop.
This is where it gets ridiculous.
That's where I have a big-time issue because Mookie's stats currently, he was sick that we mentioned at the beginning of the season, but that does not matter in all-star voting. I don't care. 11 home runs, 44 RBIs, 249 average. And then where's Trey at? Trey is batting. Trey has 11 home runs, just as many, 39 RBIs, and is batting 300, 22 stolen bases.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But
and that's 108 hits.
Now, here's my theory, because obviously Trey deserves it way more than Mookie. My theory is typically with guys getting votes, is they get a lot of votes from their fan base. And I think our fan base is so negative on Trey Turner, and undeservingly so.
Yeah, he's
that I don't think our fan base has really been voting for him. which I think it's ridiculous, but they just look at the errors he makes sometimes and then just like base their entire opinion on him off of that.
Those are the same
They're not
types of
basing on
people.
how well he's hitting and all the great plays he makes in the field. If you look at the Phillies in terms of how many runs they're saving as defenders in the field, Trey Turner's leading the Phillies because he makes
He's he's top 10 in fielding WAR for shortstops. And yesterday he dropped that double play that he could have made, and then literally the next batter he turned the double play right back. So he does that. He's stealing bases again. He's got 22, which is like he has more stolen bases now than he had literally all of last season. And last year was when he was dealing with that hamstring injury. He's on pace to have more stolen bases than he's had since literally 2018, where he had 43. He had 2019, he had 35 stolen bases. 2021, he had 32. So, I mean, he's probably going to eclipse those numbers. He had 30 in 2023.
I mean,
Yeah.
this fan base acts like he's not batting 300 and still playing good defense. You know, they're just focused on the area. And this fan base has honestly been.
It's the same people I feel like that don't ever criticize Bryce Harper or Kyle Schwarber, but everybody else is always the issue. And I love Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper, but it can't always be Trey Turner and Nick Castellanos' fault every time everything goes bad.
Or Alec Boehm. Like look at Alec Boehm, where the other day he grounds out, or no, he strikes out with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and everybody like blames the loss on him. What about the pitching that gave up 9 runs? What what?
Last year, all I heard about was everybody was playing bad, and there was no credit to Nick Castellanos that when Nick Castellanos was the only player that was performing in the playoffs, that was a position player, and there was no credit given.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. So, like, all right, let me throw this out there, and then let's move on to the Philadelphia 76ers. But like, okay, you look at Trey Turner, you look at Nick Castellanos, right? My brother Mike, he doesn't like either of them. Okay, he doesn't like Castellanos because he just doesn't feel like I don't know. I think Castellanos still puts up good numbers in the regular season, but he doesn't like Castellanos for what he did in the regular season last year. I tell him he's the only one who showed up in the postseason. He says it doesn't matter. He stinks. Doesn't play well in the regular season. He also doesn't like Trey Turner, who puts up great numbers in the regular season, but he's like, oh, but he didn't show up in the playoffs. So he doesn't like Trey Turner. You got to get rid of his contract, he said, going into the season. He said that so many times, it still infuriates me. But it's like, okay, so what the fuck do you want then? You don't like one guy because he shows up in the postseason, but not in the regular season. You don't like another guy because he shows up all regular season, but doesn't show up in the postseason. You know, like what the fuck? Like, people just find reasons to complain about Phillies players, and it drives me insane. It's like they expect them to be gods amongst men.
It's just like the topic is just like always fixated on the same people, but the topic never changes or progresses because it's just regardless of what that person does in the positive light, they'll never like get out of it. And then the people that can do no wrong can never do any wrong. But I just wanted to run through the All-Star voting before we move on to basketball real quickly because it didn't stop there. Third base, Manny Machado. I mean, he's one of the best third basemen of all time. Plays one of the best defenses, and that's not up for debate. The runner-up, Max Muncy. Max Muncy is the runner-up, another Dodger, batting .250, 13 home runs, 55 RBIs.
I mean that's not bad. What's his on base percentage?
Is that all-star? He also, I think he got glasses or contacts recently when he wasn't using them before, and now he's like performing a lot better. But Eugenio Suarez, 26, 7, or 8 home runs on the season as a third baseman for the Diamondbacks.
He's behind him in voting?
Muncy's the runner-up with Machado.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And Alec Boehm is batting 283 with 8 home runs and 41 RBIs. So he has a couple less home runs with a significantly higher batting average. So, I mean, I don't know if I would say Boehm's an all-star, but it's pretty close. Let's run through this real quickly. Outfield was designated hitter Shohei, obviously. We mentioned that before. Outfield is Ronald Acuna, even though his season started May 23rd, but he's been going crazy. I saw somebody on the MLB Network actually try to say that the Braves should trade Ronald Acuna, and I thought it was the craziest thing that I've ever heard. Um, Pete Crow Armstrong, another outfielder. I mean, Pete Crow Armstrong's playing crazy this season, and then Kyle Tucker, another outfielder. I heard something crazy about there's like 3 Gold Glove level outfielders for the Cubs, and like their defensive run saved. So they could be a team with the way their offense produces and their defense in the outfield. That could be scary come playoff time. And then the runners up in the outfield: Teoscar Hernandez, another Dodger. Juan Soto on the Mets, and then Andy Pages, another Dodger. So every single position besides center field, the Dodgers either had a starter at position player or a runner-up in the All-Star voting. So shout out to their fans in a big city that usually, like the big cities, don't care for their teams unless
And
it's like
that's
the Lakers, the
yeah, and
Yankees.
that's why,
They
and I
came
think
together
that's
for this
why
one.
we're getting snubbed a lot is because our fans just aren't voting accordingly. It's a shame, really. But
Real quickly, first Sixers topic. What do you think the first thing that's going to come out of my mouth about the Sixers?
I would think VJ
What would you
Edgecombe.
assume it would be? What would you put your money down on it being?
I would assume it to be VJ Edgecombe.
No, it was how Jaden Springer was on the bench for the Jazz last night in the Summer League.
Was he really?
Yeah,
I
15
was
minutes
out
late.
last night. I recorded the game. I
That's why
watched
I texted you,
a good
and you
bit
said you
of
had
it this
plans already, but
morning.
I was
I
going
haven't
to ask
gotten
you if you
around
wanted
to
to watch
finish
the game.
watching it yet. I still got to finish watching it. I recorded it last night.
I
But I
got my
didn't.
Sixers jersey on right now. You can see it without the mic.
One thing I enjoyed about watching the game from last night, from what I've watched of it so far, is watching the game and seeing all the obscure players that I forgot made appearances for the Sixers last year. Because I in the second half of the season, it really turned into the process era where you're just getting just random guys playing for
Well,
your
that's when
team.
I was doing
And then you
that.
see him again in the summer league. It's like, oh yeah, Jalen Hood-Schifino. I remember you.
That's funny you mentioned him because I was actually thinking that he could probably, I would be down with him being like the 14th or 15th guy off the bench this year for them, just for some forward versatility. But that's what's funny because I was thinking the same thing when I was looking at how the Jazz, like their starting lineup outside of Ace Bailey, was all guys that played 20 plus minutes in the NBA on average last year and at least 50 games, with 3 of those guys playing 20 plus minutes and playing in 70 plus NBA games with numerous starts. So all those guys are proven. And the Sixers were throwing guys out there that had kind of had a little bit of experience just based off of the end of the season and all the random guys that they were using in the rotations. But VJ Edgecombe looked really good last night. We're not going to, get over dramatic about a summer league performance either way. And it's funny that the first game was matched up with Ace Bailey, who a lot of people wanted
Dude,
us
I'll tell you
truly
what, man. I
to be
didn't
the third overall pick, and he did not play well. I think he shot 23% from the field. It was like 2 of 13 or something, and had like 8 points. Wearing an ugly 19 too. Like Justin Edwards wears 19, and it kind of fits him. And he's not, he's carving out a name for himself in the NBA. But like for Ace Bailey, that 19 was just not popping for me. I thought it was pretty ugly, in my opinion. But the Edgecombe 77 kind of was
You know
wearing,
what? It doesn't
kind of
look
was
too
growing
bad.
on me a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it doesn't look too bad. But what I was going to say was I didn't even realize before yesterday that our first game was going to be against the Jazz. And then I'm on Twitter and I see that the Sixers playing the Jazz Summer League. I'm like, this is freaking perfect. I was a little bummed that I wasn't going to be home to watch it. I was hanging out in the city with my cousin and some of our friends, but But yeah, I mean, the way it worked out like that, you look at VJ Edgecombe, the guy they did draft. You look at Ace Bailey, the guy we all wanted them to draft at first, the guy they probably would have drafted if he didn't act like such a diva. And the first game ends up being against him. Not only does Edgecombe have a great game, dropping 28 points, it was pretty efficient shooting from the floor. He also looked really good while doing so. And then Ace Bailey, the other guy, the guy they could have drafted, ends up shooting 3 of 13. Obviously, one summer league game is not an indication of how their careers are going to play out. But for that to be the way things start off, I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah, Edgecombe actually shot 1 of 7 from 3, so that's something that
Oh,
he
I didn't
needs to
realize
work on,
that.
and he wasn't the best at his three-point
Well,
shooting,
he's
but
not he's
I
not
thought it
really a
was actually a
three-point shooter.
positive that he scored all those points without an effective three-pointer because it showed that he's actually a three-level scorer. If he can get the three-point shot more consistently, and that was something that was an issue for him. I think he shot like 33% on pull-up shots last year in college, but he's got a bag, and the first bucket that he made in the summer league was my favorite bucket that he made. Was that floater falling away, that layup that hit off the top of the glass and went in, and that was right after Ace made his first bucket. And they traded buckets back and forth, but it just shows the pure athleticism that he has, and he's a really good defender. And when you were still in the Ace Bailey train, and I was too, but I was defending if the Sixers went a different route, and I was kind of defending VJ right before the draft, and I said that he was a good rebounder. 10 rebounds last night.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing I was really happy to see because, like I've been saying, this team needs rebounding, especially because now Gershon Yabusele has signed with the New York Knicks. That's something we
The
didn't
one
even.
play, I don't know if you saw it, he took it right off the rim and then went coast to coast and they had that euro when the defender posted
I
up
didn't
at
see
the
that
free throw
yet. I
line
have not seen
and
that yet.
tried to cut him off, and he just easily euroed right past him. And he's just so smooth and athletic. What I noticed about him, his athleticism, he's got this like hang time on his vertical that's like that Ja Morant-esque, where like when he
Oh
jumps,
yeah,
he's like just like hanging in the air for like seconds on end, and like his athleticism really pops.
I think he's really
I think it
like
was
I
Jay
think he's
Billis,
really
one of the
like an
most
Ant
respected
Edwards
like draft
from.
analysts, was just saying that he's easily the best the best athlete in the draft, and it really showed when he gets out there on the court. And the one thing that I was skeptical about was his ability with the ball in his hands on offense to create, and a lot of the situations that he was put in last night in the summer league was to create with the ball in his hands, and they're running set plays for him. And he also had 4 assists, and he just looks comfortable. He got into the lane on Filipowski the one time, and he stopped like 8 feet away and then hit like a fade away post up fade jumper. So he's got a bag of a bunch of different moves. Obviously, he can dunk as well. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
was
had a
really
nice
impressed with him.
tomahawk dunk in that
And like I
game.
said, it was all versus proven guys. Isaiah Collier, all these guys have played in the NBA. Bryce Sensabaugh, Isaiah Collier, Cody Williams, Ace Bailey was obviously a lottery pick, so he's really talented. And Kyle Filipowski was another first round pick that probably would have went higher if he didn't have some off the field concerns about a weird situation with like a controlling girlfriend. Um, but I was just really impressed about the guys that the level of competition that BJ was able to flash and show his athleticism. And he was easily the best player on the court, him and Isaiah Collier last night. And Nadim Bona looked pretty well too. He had this one really
I
good
like
move
I
yesterday
like
to do
Adam
an
Bona.
explosive move. So
Yeah, I like him.
Justin Edwards made a kind of little bonehead play. The one thing that kind of I sighed at when I was watching, because I watched pretty much the entire game. VJ missed a crucial free throw late in the game that could have kept it, because it ended up being a 4-point game, and if you would have made that, they could have kept it a one possession game and had more of an opportunity at the end. But that I've been known for in the podcast bringing up people's high school resume in the past.
Mhm.
Um, Isaiah Collier, the guard for um, the guard for the Jazz last night. He went to USC, played with Bronny. He was actually either the first or second overall high school basketball recruit in the country a couple years ago.
Oh, wow.
So they had Ace Bailey, VJ, and Ace from that class. That's 3 and 4, or it might be 2 and 3. I think it was 2 and 3, and then Harper was right after them. And then I think Edwards was in that same class with Collier. So that's 1 and 3 or 2 and 3 from that class. So they had 4 guys that were ranked top 5 in their high school recruiting class in the past 2 to 3 years that were on the same summer league court together, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But on the other hand, Janai Broom looked pretty good out there as well. Like the athleticism thing, that vertical, like, that 24-inch vertical that he went viral for. I feel like it just doesn't, like, for the type of game that he plays, it doesn't really matter. It's not like he's not like catching lobs above the rim or anything like that. So it doesn't like, and they had Bona. So Bona, having the profile of a player like Bona, who's like uber athletic, and then a guy who's really skilled in Broom, but might not, play above the rim. It's a nice balance. But I feel like a lot of people are concerned with the power forward position. How concerned are you about power forward? I know that you lost.
I'm pretty concerned, man, especially now that they've lost Gershon Yabusele to the Knicks. Like I don't love
starting role by any chance, and I think he might be a little bit too unathletic to play with Joel Embiid. I think that's what.
Well, listen, I don't love Paul George. I don't like Paul George at power forward at all. I don't think he's a power forward. This is a guy who originally started off as a 2 guard for the Pacers, becomes a 3. Now in today's game of small ball, now he's a 4. The only thing power forward about him is his height. That is it. He has no other, nothing else about his game, about his skill set justifies him playing the power forward position. He's not.
I feel like his
not a rebounder
for that position. Like his profile for what he does for a 4, being Paul George, like doesn't give the Sixers really an advantage either.
Yeah. So Paul George, he's not power forward to me. So
the biggest question I'm about to ask you that might
hold on, because looking at that, the Sixers don't really have a power forward on their roster.
You assumed on the last podcast that Yabusele was still on the roster, and I told you to don't assume that. I was always talking about.
No, I was talking about if
Yabusele
stays. I was talking about if Yabusele stays on the roster, what lineup I would want.
I know, but where I'm going to escalate this is too. I feel like you're going to assume that Quentin Grimes is on the roster, but Quentin Grimes is asking for $25 million per year, which the Sixers
Quentin Grimes is probably on his way out himself.
The Sixers could pay him like anything that he wants, but it's just gonna, they're gonna tax themselves into the luxury tax and the aprons to do so. So is it really worth keeping?
I would rather than pick up a legit power forward in free agency than keep Quentin Grimes. I love Quentin Grimes. I thought he played amazing in the second half of.
I don't think Trendon Watford is that guy,
but I think with the roster the way it currently is, with Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Kelly Oubre, VJ Edgecombe, instead of then adding Quentin Grimes to that list, I would rather than just pick up a legit power forward and let those other guys do their thing.
A name that's been floating around has been Chris Boucher, who was on the 2019 Toronto Raptors roster. He was the last guy standing that just got released by them. Nick Nurse has coached him in the past. He's 6'9", can shoot. I think he shot like 39% plus from 3 last year, and he's a versatile big. He's a guy that I actually forgot was in the NBA. He just kind of got phased out. And that Raptors.
Let's look at the
32 years old. He could be a solid replacement. That other guy that I just mentioned, Trendon Watford. Did we mention him on the last podcast? Was he signed by then?
I think so, yeah.
No, I don't think he was, because they just signed him, and we did it before free agency started the last podcast. So that was the two.
Well, Trendon Watford isn't much. It's another guy who average.
They also signed the guy from Portland that has 150 plus games of experience, Jabari Walker. to a two-way contract though, so he's played in
Well,
the NBA.
here's the thing. Listen, here's the thing about Trendon Watford. Okay, so he's a forward. He's 6'9". That's what I like. Now, this is a guy who he's not been a starter in his career. He averages around 20 minutes per game. If you look at his rebounding numbers per 36 minutes, they're really good. Well, I wouldn't say really good, but they're better than what we have per 36 minutes. He averaged 6 rebounds per game last year. The year before that, 8.2 rebounds. It's definitely rebounding and size that we need. I don't know much about him. Nobody really knows much about him. He hasn't been a starter even over in Brooklyn, a bad team over there. So I don't know if he's good enough to be a starting caliber player.
No, he's not
So
going to be a starter.
I'm not putting too much energy into Trendon Watford, but I want to look at the upcoming the free agents still currently available at the forward position. Right now, I'm thinking.
You know how? Remember, I told you before. I follow that one dude, Sam Amico. He just
What
posted
about
right before we started. Updated available NBA free agent list by position. That's where I saw Chris Boucher's name from, and I saw some other people talking about it. We could bring back a Philly legend, PJ Tucker.
What the fuck?
Jeremiah
Why is
Robinson
this
Earl, who played at
website being weird? One guy
Jeremiah
I'm seeing is Precious Achua, and I'm trying to look at
Preston
his.
Ochoa, Bol, Chris
I don't want
Boucher,
no ball.
Anthony
I'll take
Gill,
Precious Achua.
James Johnson, who's just like a bodyguard pretty much, Trey Lyles, Markeith Morris, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who played at Villanova, JT Thor, PJ Tucker, Cole Swider, Dominic Barlow. That's pretty much. I'm trying to see if there's any.
I mean, there's Marvin Bagley, but I don't want Marvin Bagley. Chris Boucher, yeah.
Marcus Bagley, wasn't he? He was a small forward, but wasn't he on the Sixers for a little bit of time last year? Didn't he play a couple games for them?
I have.
You can use
no
Jay
idea.
Crowder's always been a high level role player, not in the past couple of years, but he has been in the past, and he's played the four small.
Listen, get me anybody who can just come in and rebound from the power forward position. I would really like Precious Achua. I haven't heard any rumblings about the Sixers going after him, but that's a guy I really would like. Jay Crowder, he only played 9 games last year, but the year before that, at the age of 33, averaged. Oh my God!
What about Al?
Rebounds per
What
game.
about big old Al?
Al Horford?
Yeah,
I should
sign
shoot
him and his
you for
sister
even
to a 5-year
suggesting.
contract.
I should shoot you for even suggesting that. I'm never bringing Al Horford back to this city ever again.
His sister, remember how negative she was with all her crazy tweets about the Sixers?
Yeah, I remember all of it. Wait a minute. Jonathan Kuminga is a restricted free agent.
It would be a sign and trade. I mean, would you rather have Quentin Grimes or Jonathan Kuminga at those prices? Jonathan Kuminga averaged 25 after Curry got hurt in the second round. He averaged 25 in 4 or 5 games for the Warriors.
Kuminga's a lot taller.
He's also 22
I don't think he
old.
rebounds, though, does he? No, just 4.6 rebounds per game. I don't know. No matter how they do it, they need to bring in a power forward. And it's a shame because they have so much talent at the guard position, and they have Joel Embiid. Maybe Paul George can.
What about LeBron getting bought out? Coming to Philly. LeBron getting bought out, coming to Philly.
Well, obviously, yeah, that's not gonna happen. But what I'm saying is, it would be such a shame, with all the talent they have at the guard position, you just add one of the best players in the draft.
Well, they have a surplus of talent, so they need to move some of that talent to go resource.
Well, yeah, and that's what I've already been saying. But hold on, let me just finish my thought here. What I'm saying is this: with all the talent they currently have at the guard position, with adding more to it with the third pick in the draft with VJ Edgecombe, with Joel Embiid, with maybe Paul George can get back going again. When you look at this roster in terms of how much talent is on it, it's an extremely talented roster, and it would be a shame to squander all of that talent by not adding a power forward to it. by just like neglecting an entire position, which they've been neglecting that position the past few years. So I could see them doing it again. I don't know why they don't put much stock into it. So it would really, truly be a shame to just neglect that position, have an extremely talented roster, and shit the bed in the playoffs yet again because
I mean, they had the
rebound.
position was tied up by Tobias with that crazy contract for how long. So I don't know if they would say they're neglecting it. They just made a really bad decision for a long period of time that just carried over. So, I'm trying to see some of the guys last year that might have potential to come back and play a role for them at that position. I mean, we still don't even know. They opted in. They could be trying to trade Andre Drummond. I feel like they might be ready to just use Mona as the backup big and just run it that way.
I wouldn't hate that either. As long as because that's the thing. You don't need 3 centers. You don't need all these guards. You don't need 3 centers. What you do need is a goddamn power forward. So whatever you do something.
I can't tell if the guys that they're getting are cheap because they're young or they're specifically targeting them to be young. Because they are working with, a lot of big contracts to older players between Joel and Paul. And the rest of the roster is really young. But all these guys that they're signing now, Watford's 24, Walker's 22. I mean, all the guys that they're bringing in are younger, so it looks like they're just doing a whole youth movement. So I don't know if that's going to impact the type of guys, like how that might just eliminate them from a certain type of veteran in general. But I mean, they also, we didn't mention, they brought back. You saw they brought back Eric Gordon too.
Yeah, I don't get why. Why?
Why it's actually.
Gordon
I
here?
thought
It
the
makes
same
no
thing.
fucking sense.
I thought the same thing, and I was like, yeah, that's like a stupid move. He shot 40% from 3 last year.
But with all the young talent they have at the guard position, and with the fact they need, I can't.
Yeah,
even
but
say
sometimes you don't want a spark shooter off the bench, just
it.
a guy that can just get buckets off the bench real quickly in a catch and shoot
How
situation. I'll take that.
now?
It's not like they sign him for anything that's going to actually they sign him for a vet minimum. So I mean,
I guess,
it
yeah.
is. But what level of player are you looking like? Or are you willing to trade guys?
I don't give a shit about level of player. I just give a shit about power forward who can rebound. That's all I care.
Are you willing to not have Andre Drummond, Kelly Oubre, and Quentin Grimes off the roster if that meant that they could solidify that?
Well, we would have to be talking about a really good power forward in that scenario if I'm giving up all of those players.
I mean, you're not going to get we're talking about pretty good players, but it's not. I mean, it's not any. Those players are decent, but it's not any.
It would have to be to give up Oubre, Drummond, and Grimes. It would have to be like a power forward who's proven as a starting caliber power forward who has proven himself as a very good rebounder, who's logged in playoff minutes already.
I would trade those 3 guys.
I'm not talking about like an all-star player. I'm just talking about somebody who's.
I would trade those 3 guys right now for Obi Toppin,
starting power forward in the NBA.
If the Pacers need some players because Tyrese is hurt and they just lost Miles Turner, you need a center, Andre Drummond. You need somebody to come get some buckets with Tyrese not playing, Kelly Oubre. You need another bucket getter in Quentin Grimes. And then
wait, which player from the Pacers are we talking about?
Obi Toppin. Was going crazy in the finals, shoots threes, rebounds, crazy athletic, former lottery pick. Young still.
What are those rebounding numbers looking like? How tall is he? 6'9".
6'10". Has like a 40-plus inch vertical leap.
6'10". He averages 4 rebounds per game. I just want rebounding. I just want fucking rebounding. That's all I want. Just give me rebound.
You got to guard.
I don't care about adding somebody who's athletic, who can score, who can shoot, all this shit. Just give me fucking rebounding. We have all of that currently. We have guys who are athletic.
Paul George can give you 5.
Guys who can shoot. We have guys who can score. Just give me rebounding. That's all I goddamn want.
Would that mean that you would want Andre Drummond to stay on the roster then, since he has a history?
No, because I'm talking about rebounding. I want two motherfuckers on the court who can also rebound. I'm not talking about somebody to bring off the bench and not be on the court along with Joel Embiid who can also no, like I want somebody who I want to have our center who can rebound, and then I want just one other motherfucker on the court who can also rebound. It is very simple. That's all
Well,
I
I was
give
going
a
to
shit
say,
about.
if Paul George can get 5 for you, if Joel averages 11,
I
and
want somebody who can get 7. Give me somebody who can get 7 at least. I would love 8, but at the bare minimum, give me somebody who can get 7. That's what I'm asking for. I don't want to care about, well, if you think about how much Paul George is rebounding and blah, 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 blah. No, just give me somebody who's at least 6'8", plays the power forward position, and can average at least 7 rebounds per game. It's not a tough ask, in my opinion. Unless Edgecombe can come out and start rebounding and can start grabbing 6 rebounds per game out of the 2-guard or small forward spot, then maybe give me a guy who can
I
rebound
said the
6 per game.
accumulation of it. If Edgecombe gets 4, if Paul gets 5, that's 9, and Joel gets 11, that's 20, and then you still have 2 other positions in your starting lineup. And then if you keep Drummond, that could give you like 5 or 6 in 18 minutes, or maybe even 8 to 10 if he peaks. You have
I want to get analytical about it. You look at that playoff series they lost to the Knicks. They got out rebounded. The players on the court were much better at rebounding the basketball than the Philadelphia 76ers. So I want somebody who can who's just a good rebounder. I don't care about the analytics of who's rebounding what, unless like I said, unless VJ Edgecombe can grab a lot of boards out of that position, because part of what went into that was Josh Hart grabbing so many rebounds out of that position. So just get me somebody who can rebound. But it just seems like with today's game, it's all about small lineups and blah blah blah. But then you get into the playoffs, you get out rebounded and you lose. But you still focus on
I feel like
today's
it's
game is
different
about.
because I feel like the dynamic that just makes it weird about today's game is a lot of the ball handlers are rebounders.
Except for in the case of the Sixers,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
rebounding.
saying. Like
But listen, the Phillies game's
Jokic
about to
handles the
start.
ball. For the Lakers, they have LeBron and Luka that both can get 8 or 9 rebounds by a blink of the eye, and they're the ball handlers. Cade Cunningham even gets boards for the Pistons. Just go down the line of different teams, and the big guys all get rebounds too. So, but you want to hear breaking news?
Sure, and
History
then I
on
want to
the
go watch the
podcast?
Phillies game. What's up?
History on the podcast?
What you got?
The first 7-team NBA trade in the history of basketball?
Okay.
It's just an updated trade with the Kevin Durant trade that just got expanded to 7 teams.
Oh wow! I thought you were about to tell me a new trade that just went down.
Yeah, so
17.
the final terms of the 7-team deal, Suns walk away with Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Common Malawach, Rasheer Fleming, who's actually went to Camden High School, Kobe Barea, Dayton guy, DeQuan Plowden, and a second-round pick. The Rockets get Kevin Durant and Clint Capella. That's a good signing. I like the Clint Capella sign. The Rockets actually have really high odds to win the title too. They're second behind the Thunder, I'm pretty sure. Brooklyn Nets 2 seconds. The Warriors get Alex Tuhey and Jemai Rashak or Mashak. The Hawks get a second round swap. David Roddy, Sixers legend David Roddy, and some cash. The Lakers get Adu Theorio, who they drafted in like the second round, I think 36 pick that they traded up for. And then the Timberwolves get Rocco Ziriowski, 2 seconds in cash. So it's so funny to hear this trade, see how expanded it is, and look back on it. And it's the first trade ever. And if you're like a NBA enthusiast or historian, in a couple years look back on this trade, or in a long time look back on this trade, and Kevin Durant's like a top 20 player of all time, and then you just start mentioning all these random ass dudes that are involved in this trade with Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I was just looking on Twitter. a lot of the teams are getting almost nothing out of the deal. So somebody said stat padding doesn't count, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, just making history to make history, just calling up the
Yeah,
Guinness Book of World Records to ask if the trade's some history on some shit
yeah.
like that. Have you ever tried to? You seem like a guy that you would spend some time researching a specific niche type of Guinness Book of World Record and trying to attempt it to break the record. Have you ever
No,
spent
I think all the
time
Guinness Book of World Records are stupid. They're extremely dumb. I look into like a niche sports record and I get curious about it, but in terms of like the ones you see in the Guinness Book of World Records, they're all really stupid and I do not care about them one bit.
Okay. On that note, we're going to wrap it up for episode 104 of the Paisan Sports Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're about to watch the Phillies. Hopefully, they can win the series over the Reds and build some momentum going into the series versus the Padres starting next week. And at the end of next week, we also have the All-Star break. So we'll see how that turns out for the MLB. And we'll have a little bit of break between baseball. Didn't get to mention the Eagles again. There's just, this is just the dead period. So next week, when there's some time with the All-Star break for baseball, we'll mention the Eagles, get some topics out for you, and we'll have some more summer league action to react to with the Sixers, and maybe they'll make some moves and add some players, and have some transactions on the wire. The NBA definitely slowed down after the first couple days of free agency. So, but we'll be back next week with some more Philadelphia sports news for you guys to be updated on.